So you're trying to gamify your business app for user retention, right? Your metrics are how long people stay and how often they come back. And you want to use gamification techniques to maximize those values. How to do this? So first of all, look broader, not only within your app scope, but also in terms of marketing, because it is very important to understand the medium you operate in. For example, you would approach different procedures if you have a web app, different if you have a mobile app, different if you have a hybrid experience, and also how and where your users are actually using the app. You need to leverage those. So let's start with the web apps. If you have a web app, something that's being accessed by browser, mostly on the laptop or desktop, by default, you have mobile first design, which means that if someone opens that on the mobile device, it looks very nice. You have all that covered, but still it is a web app, not a mobile app. You need to first focus on how to bring user back after he visited for the first time, registered, liked your app, and then went off it because he had something else to do. So if you have a web app, it is accessible on the browser. People can use it on their laptops or their mobile phones because it's mobile first design. Then you have actually two options. First of all is newsletter, and second one is social media sharing. And you should leverage those to make sure that people do not forget about your app, because it's not their fault that will forget. Even if they had a good experience, they might not come back just because they had something else to do, something more important. So make sure that you actually leverage those elements first before you try to do too much using gamification. But how can you actually use gamification in marketing external to the app? So first thing is newsletters, and email marketing is very, very important. The most common use of gamification technique in the newsletter is fear of missing out. So we create promotions, offers that are limited in time, maybe only today, maybe by the end of the week, and this is how we bring users back. Fear of missing out is very important. Second gamification technique you can use is the power of surprise. You can send something in an email that will surprise users. For example, if you have very active development cycle, then you can just surprise the users with a lot of new features that have been added. But if your application is growing very steadily, you don't have that much news, then maybe you can surprise the user with, for example, a little bit of more free credits or free access than he thought he would have. This should throw him out of the typical loop of thinking that this is yet another newsletter email, that they want something from me. Second thing you can consider is social media sharing. Why someone would share his experience on social media? Because if you tailor this right, you can actually leverage a lot of it. For example, if your typical customer is working in business environment, then he might be using LinkedIn, and what he can share on LinkedIn from your app that will make him look like an expert, someone valuable, someone worth likes and clicks. For example, you can help him to share and show his social status through your app. Let's say that you have a SaaS app that allows users to create short videos. You can, for example, allow him to share those videos easily with the community, but that's the easy part, not really gamification. But what's interesting is that you can from time to time surprise user with interesting stats and insights he has. For example, that he so far created 300 minutes of material, and then allow him to share that information. That will allow him to actually boost his ego and his social status by showing how much he has done, while it will allow you to grow as a platform. Different thing is with mobile apps. If you have mobile app, then for sure you're focusing on in-app notifications. In-app notifications are very important because they can be sent daily, and it's not so easy for the users to turn them off completely, and therefore you have much longer leeway until user gets exhausted with them. But the problem with them is that because of that, usually the in-app notifications are of very low quality. What you should be sending in in-app notification, things that are worth actioning on immediately. For example, daily goals, limited time offers, things like that. So as you can see, if you already have an app that you want to gamify for user attention, you need to really think about broader perspective of marketing, email marketing, notifications, social media sharing before actually you start implementing the gamification techniques within the app itself. But once you've got that covered, what are the simplest steps you can take? For sure, you can reward the player. You can reward player by creating simple pop-ups or notification screens that are welcoming the player after he came back to your app with a nice congratulations, a nice extra, something to cheer for just for the opening of the app. If you reward the player for just one thing, just for opening the app in a nice way, only this one thing will increase your user retention, because people like to get rewarded. People like to feel good about themselves. Help them do this. It doesn't cost you anything. So the second thing you should consider is adding element of novelty. It doesn't have to be something new added to the app each time, but each time your user visits the app, he should be able to see something else. There is nothing more boring than opening the same app for the second and third time and seeing exactly the same screen. I mean, there might be thousands of interesting materials inside, but if you show to the user exactly the same thing every time he opens the app, then he will get bored before he will explore that. So do not lose your chances by showing always the same material to the user. Try to mix it. Try to show always at least one extra new thing that he haven't seen yet, because the surprise triggers the dopamine effect within the brain. It rewards the player on the chemical level. Also, people learn much quicker when they experience a new environment. So each time you expose the user to a new environment, he learns your app much quicker and from different angle. And the more he learns your app, the more he is more familiar with that, and the more he's keen to use it because it's something that he knows. If you keep showing the same screen, the same colors, the same stuff to the user all the time, he will never learn more than what he did during the first app use. So if your user interface is not absolutely perfectly clean, then he will quickly get discouraged. But if you really will emphasize something new to the user each time he visits the app, just one new element each time he opens the app, he will learn the app much quicker, because it will always trigger new neural connections within his brain. So just 2 tips for you for now. First of all, understand your app and understand the marketing efforts that are very important before you really figure out how to gamify. But then once you're there, focus on those 2 small things. Reward the player for opening the app. Simple, easy to implement. And second, figure out how to show always something else to the user. If you just implement those 2 things, I promise you will get great results without having to spend a lot of development work on implementing all those various gamification techniques you thought you need to have. Focus on those 2 things first. That's a good UX. Allow users and players to learn your interface, learn your app, and be happy when using your app. That's it. Let's start with that. And only when you cover those 2 things perfectly, then we can move on to more gamification techniques. I hope that helped you, and see you next time.